I actually think that this is a reality, and in my opinion, just based on some of the tools that I'm seeing around analytics and the personalization levels, I think it's only getting better. One of the things that we expect now is, and Mark, you actually referred to this at a conference we were at together. There's an expectation that when you log on to Amazon, that they're going to be suggesting potential purchases for you. This is what people expect. This is what people like. This is what people understand. But that's only one small part of the whole personalization component or capability that analytics need to bring to the table. In my view, what we're seeing now with the analytics packages is very much a heightened level beyond that Amazon suggested purchases. What we're seeing now is anticipated purchases based on your customer life cycle, based on your where you are in life, where your income stream should be, what you're looking to purchase at a particular age versus what you were purchasing potentially 5 to 10 years ago. There is certainly, I think, a level of expectation amongst the consumers that companies are going to have this insight into them. We all talk about privacy and not wanting to share aspects of our personal lives, but one thing that consumers do like is the ability for a company to know what they purchased recently, what they're purchasing now, what they might want to purchase in the future. Organizations that upsell effectively to individuals on the basis of analytics and personalizational analytics tend to do quite well. If the algorithms are correct, if the technology is succinct, then this is definitely something that is very much in play. The technology is out there. This is something that we are absolutely seeing right now. The key is for organizations to deploy it in such a way that it's going to work for them.
Yeah, and this is something that we've been promised for years and years, but it feels almost as if many companies have been overwhelmed with data. They just have too much to realistically be able to personalize and create offers or recommendations quickly enough for it to be meaningful. I mean, the kind of classic case study in this was from about 15 years ago, which was Target when they sent offers for baby products to a teenage girl. And the father got in touch with Target and said, why the hell are you sending this stuff to us? And they said, well, based on your history, we feel that there's probably someone pregnant in the household. And of course, the father had to call back a couple of weeks later and apologize because he knew more than he did. And so, this is a sort of case study that we've seen it. The data analysts have been promising this for a long time, but in my everyday reality, my supermarket still sends me offers for beef and pork, and I don't eat meat. So, I know that I'm getting stuff that they should know. They have a record of every purchase I've ever made in that supermarket, and yet they still kind of advertise stuff that I'm never going to buy. So, I think that we've seen a wave of promises, but I think that what might be tipping the dial now is really the AI and how it can actually help to automate the process of personalizing offers and recommendations based on a customer life cycle, customer history, being able to look at the purchasing history and being able to find patterns in that fast enough for it to actually be like offers created in real time. So I think that we've seen all the promises for years now, but it finally seems to be sort of tipping over into an environment where we will see more meaningful personalization.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that whole element of personalization is so crucial in the stickiness with the relationship amongst the consumer and the enterprise. Enterprises, as Mark said, have been overwhelmed with the volumes of data. Now it's a case of figuring out what data is going to be applicable. Now it's a case of figuring out what data needs to be collected as opposed to bringing on too much to deal with, and really using the most effective data points for consumers to target exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that doesn't seem to be applied that often is like external data, because it's one thing for a supermarket to be recommending a product because it's a product that you've bought regularly in the past, but to actually correlate that to other external factors, like what major events are going on in your city right now, what is the weather in your city right now, being able to sort of pull together these external data sources with your shopping history, and even to sort of find a correlation between, do you buy more football when there's a big beer, or do you buy more beer when there's a big football game on? This kind of pinpoint accuracy on customer behavior, I think, is really where we're going to see analytics really start creating a lot more value. Nothing is secure now. Now that we're seeing, I mean, because we're already seeing quantum cryptography right now. So I think that what we're looking at now is a situation where almost any network can be hacked, provided the people that want to get in, they've now got the tools that they can use to get in. I think that what you're often seeing is people breaking in, stealing data that they can't read, but then taking it away. And even if they can harvest that data a couple of years in the future, they will do that. So I mean, if you look around at what the analysts are saying about this, they actually think that by around 2029, it will be almost impossible to have any secure network systems or database systems using our current technology. And for most organizations, this is a really serious problem. They've got customer databases, they've got supplier databases. You've got a history of all the payment information of your customers. So how do you sort of plan for the future if you can't keep this stuff secure? So I think that everybody across all industries right now needs to be thinking about how do we keep our information secure in a kind of post-quantum cryptography environment. It's really we need new ideas, because effectively any network can now be hacked into.
It's very scary how vulnerable networks are and how enterprises are in terms of this. I long since have given up following what hacks are occurring, what hacks are being talked about in the media, because you just can't keep up. It used to be that there was a high profile one once a month, then it was once a week. Now it's virtually on a daily basis. There's an expectation, I think, amongst consumers that their information will be kept, that it will be kept securely. But there's a growing sense also that consumers have very little confidence in what organizations are able to do. It's quite worrying, the sense, as Mark said, that by the end of this decade, the anticipation is that nothing will be secure unless there's a significant amount of innovation. I was at a session not long ago by somebody who runs an infosec department, and their comment was, you should expect that your information is not secure, that it's somewhere on the internet, that at some point your information has been pulled out of a database and it's sitting on the dark web. That is a very, very scary scenario to contemplate. And the pressure is truly on for different organizations that are responsible for securing corporate information, securing consumer information to get the job done. And unless there is a significant amount, not just of financial investment, but in terms of time resource that goes into making sure that we're getting one step ahead of the game, then the game truly will be up. And the consequences, not just from the standpoint of consumers, but also potentially even public security or infrastructure, are very significant.
Yeah, and we see this all the time, like Peter was suggesting. I mean, you only have to look back in the last few months in the United States. The largest hospital group was just completely on their knees because of a ransomware attack, and they were reduced to using paper. There were not any computers working within the entire group, and that's an entire kind of health service. This happened to me. I live in Brazil, and the Brazilian health service was hacked. So all of the apps that patients used to get their information were not available. And this really affected me when I needed to prove my vaccination record, and I couldn't do it because the app wasn't working. So you can sort of see real problems for consumers But then it becomes even worse when you start talking about government data, government and health services. This is a really serious problem, and I think that Peter and I are often sort of focused on how technology influences the customer experience, but I think that is kind of at the front line of this sort of issue, because every company that's storing information about customers wants to keep that information secure. Every time you hear about a telco that's lost the personal data of 100 million customers, it's a disaster. Reputationally, it's a disaster, but they will lose customers from that, and they will lose their reputation in the marketplace because of that. So I think that this is something that, again, it's been kind of left to the infosec experts in the past, but I think that this really needs to be up on the boardroom table next year.
Yeah, 100% agree. We've talked a lot about AI over the course of this chat, and I don't think there's any question that that would be a very logical candidate to identify in terms of where innovation is probably going to be drawn from in the coming year or in the near to medium term. I also think that there is very likely going to be innovation across a whole series of different elements. And you mentioned the metaverse. It's been a little bit quiet over the course of the past while, but we should not forget the fact that the metaverse does play to a niche audience, a very sophisticated niche audience, one that is looking to grow. And certainly not just grow in terms of numbers, but also the functionality that they can use within the metaverse. I'd also say in terms of devices, the I'm not expecting there's going to be any new types of devices coming down the pike, but certainly the ones that we're using, picking up our smartphones, picking up our tablets, they're just going to get better. They're going to get more powerful. Certainly the computing that's coming out, the opportunity to use different types of services. I see Apple is now focusing heavily, not just in terms of their own internal processing components, but also in terms of enabling their computers with artificial intelligence. And that's going to be a big game changer as we look to try and renew equipment, as we look to try and take on different types of peripherals and so forth.
Yeah, and I would say then that in terms of devices, I think the big one that will be noticeable next year will be the return of the augmented reality glasses. We saw Google trying to do this about 10 years ago with Google Glass, and it really didn't work out very well. I think that Google had this idea that everybody would be walking around wearing these glasses, and you would have maps projected onto the screen and all kinds of stuff. But immediately people started asking privacy questions and things like that. Like, well, so you're taking photos of me without permission, and I don't know, what you're seeing on those screens. So, but I think that both Apple and Samsung are proposing products for next year. But I think that what you'll see is they will be initially used in professional environments, not we won't be considering that you'll be sitting on the beach wearing a pair of augmented reality glasses. It's more likely to be things like FedEx giving them to their drivers, so they can have real-time traffic information and route optimization and stuff like this, in a way that doesn't interfere with their ability to drive. And similarly, warehouse workers, for example, so where you sort of need information, but you also need to be doing stuff at the same time, I think you'll start seeing these devices becoming important. And maybe they'll move from the enterprise to daily life, but I think it'll take a few years for that to happen. And Peter mentioned around the metaverse and it being very niche, and I think that's absolutely right. I mean, when it launched, and Mark Zuckerberg even renamed Facebook to Meta, to support this kind of move to the metaverse environment, I think that at the time they were talking about it as somewhere we would spend all our time. On all those launch videos, you can see people playing virtual games of ping pong, and there was this idea that you're going to finish work for the day and then put on your VR headset and sit there in the evening at home enjoying your metaverse lifestyle. And I think that nobody, almost nobody, has sort of welcomed that. All of the large metaverse environments have not done very well, because I think that people actually want a purpose for this. They want a reason to use it. They're not just going to go there and hang out and play a game of ping pong. That's why I think
Yeah.
the initial area where this will become used is within business. Onboarding people, training people, giving people very specific experiences, without the expense of them having to do it in real life. Like, I don't know, training a deep sea diver, for example. Being able to give them that kind of complex training in a virtual environment. And then I think it will also be much more common to be invited to more virtual meetings. So I know that right now we're all on this call and we can all see each other, but I think that you'll start seeing more sort of meetings where it kind of feels almost more casual, that you have your business environment open all the time during the workday, and you can just kind of bump into colleagues. And of course, this works within the enterprise. So you can have a sort of virtual enterprise or a virtual office in which people can kind of mix. So we're sort of seeing these niche uses of it. I think that the expectations of it becoming a leisure space were a bit wide of the mark from a couple of years ago. I do
No,
think
but
that yeah, go ahead.
it's just funny how these things evolve because sometimes the anticipation about a direction or a line of sight don't exactly play out the way it was originally thought. But at the end of the day, we start seeing different types of innovations coming. And I think your examples about the metaverse are bang on. The reality is I don't know too many people that are actively users of the metaverse, but I do know that there are individuals out there who I might deal with in business that actually see practical applications, and they're developing elements around how the metaverse can be used for that segment of society, which, Mark, I think your examples are spot on, exactly alongside what you were talking about with the Google glasses. It was tried, didn't work out, but sometimes it takes a 2.0 to see where some practical application can be used, and from maybe a few niche business cases that we can see that grow out in the consumer field. So, the canvas is very blank going into 2025 for innovation.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's probably worth reiterating that whole point that we were talking about before about agentic AI. I think that will really be an important change, provided the tools are accepted in the consumer environment. Because if we really start getting used to Siri, and Alexa becoming much more useful and much more helpful in our daily life, then I think that we will see the enterprise having to respond to that, and that could be as simple as people using their digital assistants when they have a problem with a company, for example. Suddenly you might find let's say, a logistics parcel company. I don't want to spend all day calling FedEx or DHL to ask where my parcel is. Um, but I can get my digital assistant, to do that chasing for me. But that also means that enterprise needs to be geared up to be taking inquiries from digital assistants as well. So we may end up in a sort of situation where we have consumers using digital assistants, and they are communicating with digital assistants inside corporates as well. So it's a lot is going to change in this environment. I think it's very interesting. We're going to see a lot more than just smart speakers in the home.
I'm excited about 2025. I think 2024 has been a year of significant disruption in so many different ways, whether it's the environment, whether it's geopolitics, whether it's commercial affairs. But 2025, I'm starting to see some real green shoots of optimism. When it comes to the technology space, we've touched on a lot of different things, artificial intelligence, we've talked about innovation, we've talked about different channels, different analytics platforms, we've talked about keeping businesses secure from cybersecurity threats. The bottom line, though, is I do think that while there's been an uncertainty that's pervaded 2024, I do believe 2025 that businesses, enterprise leaders have their eyes on the ball. I have a sense that at least there's going to be some type of definition in terms of where the economy seems to be going. There seems to be an anticipation that there's going to be investment in a lot of key areas. Consumer confidence seems to be getting a little bit better as inflation's coming down in some key markets. And with all these different elements in mind, I think that the reason for cautious optimism is very important going into the coming year. One of the things that I would definitely keep my eyes on is a topic that we touched on, and that is governance. I think governance in terms of AI is going to be a very important element in regards to how that technology and how the users and the providers of those technologies are going to be handling themselves. I think that we're going to be seeing quite a lot more in regards to the ethical use of artificial intelligence too. But the bottom line is, as I mentioned, to use a cliche from a few minutes ago, it is a very much a blank canvas, and my anticipation is that that blank canvas is going to be filled with probably more levels of positivity and optimism than maybe we anticipated even a few months ago.
And I would echo a lot of what Peter just said. I would suggest that for those of us that work in and surrounded by IT or other technologies, that there is a lot of positivity. It is really underpinning a lot of the change across many different industries right now. We're seeing the growth in the use of AI. We're seeing the growth in the use of cloud. We're talking about double-digit percentage growth figures each year at present for many of these technologies. And so if you're involved in data centers or cloud or AI, then this is a very positive time for your business. I suppose, as Peter alluded to, the danger here is that the private sector is always way ahead of regulators and government. And so there is a danger in some areas where we see it run far ahead of what society itself will accept as normal and acceptable. I think that there are checks and balances on this. There is certainly what the public are prepared to accept as normal from different companies and organizations. But we certainly sort of need to think about regulation and governance in areas like hiring, for example. We really need to sort of think about how is AI changing this. And we certainly featured this on one of our CX Files podcasts recently as well, where we were talking about the potential to just completely replace your human resources function with an AI. Now, while it may be technically possible, what are the ethics and what is the governance around doing something like that? So I think that there's a lot of positivity around for businesses in technology, but we definitely got to stay on top of these challenges and potential challenges for the future.